everyone, my name is Queen Shokan and today we will learn about the thoracic cage, the parts in it, that is the sternum and the ribs.
Let's have a look over the thoracic cage. Thoracic cage forms the thorax, that is the chest portion of our body, and it comprises of the 12 pairs of the ribs that will be further classified into three parts along with their costal cartilages, which will include the sternum, that is the breastbone. So these ribs are anchored posteriorly to the 12 thoracic vertebra, that is from the T1 to T12. And the thoracic cage serves as an important role to protect the vital organs like the heart, the lungs. So this one is the anterior view of the thorax. We can have a look over the structure of the thorax. It is formed by the breastbone over here. This one is the breastbone, the sternum, and the 12 pairs of the ribs. Moving ahead, let's talk about the sternum. So basically, sternum is the elongated bony structure that anchors the anterior thoracic cage, and it has three parts in it: the manubrium, the body, and the xiphoid process. So manubrium is basically the superior, the wider, and the wider portion of the sternum, and it has two notches: the jugular notch or the suprasternal notch, and the clavicular notch. The jugular notch is basically a shallow U-shaped border at the tip of the manubrium, and it is very easily palpable at the base of the neck between the medial ends of our clavicle. We can easily palpate it. Palpable means that we can identify it by touching over the base of our neck, and the manubrium will be felt at the medial between the medial ends of our clavicle, that is our beauty bone or the collarbone. Then talking about the clavicular notch, it is a shallow depression on the superior lateral margin of our manubrium, and it is the site for the sternoclavicular joint. Sternoclavicular joint that is formed between the sternum and the clavicle. So there is an amazing fact about the manubrium, that the first rib of our body will get attached to the manubrium, and this first rib will be get hidden under the clavicle. So let's talk about the next part, that is the body. That is the body of the sternum. So body of the sternum is the elongated central portion of the sternum. It has a special feature known as the sternal angle. It is formed at the junction between the manubrium and the body, and it is not flat, but it is slightly bent like this. Then the second rib will get attached to the body of the sternum. Then the third portion is the xiphoid process. So xiphoid process is the inferior tip of the sternum, which is initially cartilaginous in early life, and it will gradually ossify. So let's have a look over the structure of the sternum.
So, this is the structure of the sternum, that is the breastbone. This one is the jugular notch, this one is the clavicular notch. These are the costal cartilages. This part is the manubrium, this part is the body, and the inferior short part is the xiphoid process.
Moving ahead, this one is also the structure of the sternum. So let's talk about the ribs. So each rib is a curved, flattened bone that will contribute to the thoracic wall. It articulates posteriorly with the T1 and the T12. T1 to T12, it will articulate posteriorly, like from the behind, and from the front side, that is from the anterior side, it will attach to the sternum via the costal cartilages. So parts of a typical rib are the head, the neck, the tubercle, the body, and the costal groove. Talking about the head, it is located at the posterior end of the rib, and it articulates with the costal facet of same membered vertebrae and new higher vertebrae. Talking about the neck region, neck is the narrow region lateral to the head. The tubercle is a small bump over on the posterior surface, and it articulates with the facet on the transverse process, as we saw earlier. The body comes after the tubercle region and has angle of rib. Next one is the costal groove. Costal groove is very important because it will provide the passage for the blood vessels and a nerve. So here is the structure of the rib. This one is the head, the neck region, the tubercle, that is a hump present over the typical rib. These are the articular facets for articulation. The angle of the rib, the costal groove, that will provide the passage for the blood vessels or the nerves. This one is the shaft. This provides the articulation with the costal cartilage.
So this one is the rib. So the basic structure of the rib comprises of the head, the neck. This one is the tubercle. there is the articular facet, the angle, the costal groove, which will serve as the passage for the blood vessels and the nerves, and this one at last is the attachment for the costal cartilage.
Is classification of the ribs. So the bony ribs do not extend fully to the sternum, but they ends in the costal cartilage. They don't get attached to the sternum directly, but will end with the costal cartilage and gets attached to the sternum, that is the breastbone. So there are three categories of the ribs, like the true ribs also known as the vertebrosternal ribs, the ribs number from 1 to 7. The costal cartilages of these true ribs will directly attached to the sternum, while the false ribs, these vertebrosternal ribs, vertebrochondral ribs, ribs number 8 to 10, the costal cartilage do not attach directly to the sternum, and these cartilages attach to the cartilage of the next higher rib. Talking about the floating ribs, the floating ribs are the vertebral ribs, that is from the rib number 11 to 12, which is a subset of the false ribs itself, and they do not attach to the sternum at all. They just float into the thoracic cage. So let's have a look over the ribs in this structure. So this was all about the thorax. It is showing this part is the sternum. The next part is this, that is the thoracic cage. Then let's talk about this. So these are our ribs from the 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. These are the true ribs, while the 8 9 10 are the false ribs that do not attach directly with the costal cartilage, but they will attach with the costal cartilage of the higher rib. Then there is this 11 and 12. These 11 and 12 are basically the floating ribs that are the subset of these false ribs, and these 11 and 12 will not articulate with any costal cartilage. They will just float.